You didn't even notice how you lost your own purity. It began to sound like someone else's noise inside you. Your words full of fear and guilt that you carry like an invisible stranger, the weight of emotions that are not yours, yet you accepted them as if they were. You engage in dialogue, but in reality you dissolve into someone else's vibrations. You don't notice how you cease to sound like yourself. The note no longer has its own rhythm, nor its own life. You thought the spirit was something abstract, that vibrations were merely a beautiful metaphor, that science and mysticism were incompatible. But Tesla knew something others did not. He claimed, God is purity, and if you understand how that works in reality, you will never return to who you were before. Your pain, anxiety, and fatigue, it's not easy to feel that your essence has failed. You live in a distorted signal, which means your main opportunity has been stolen. To tune into the source, into the here and now reality where thoughts become power and the body is an instrument of the spirit. This video is not about theory. It is instruction on how to reclaim your code, how to remember what purity your soul sounds like, and what ancient civilizations once knew but we have nearly forgotten. Because if you do not remember, you will never live your own life, but only someone else's version of purity, and you won't even understand why things don't feel right. God is purity, and that changes everything. God is a frequency, Tesla said, not a religion, not an idea, but purity itself. And this statement dismantles everything we were taught, because if God is purity, then contact with that purity is not prayer. Vibrational tuning is not faith, but resonance. If you are anxious, you cannot hear that purity. If you are caught in fear, in rushing, in chaos, you are disconnected from reality. You are torn away. You are not living in sin, you are simply not on that wave. That wave is not a metaphor, it is not esotericism. It is a science underpinned by quantum physics, neurophysiology, biogeometry, and common sense. When the ancient priests entered the world of the spirit, they did not rely on dogma, but on sound, rhythm, and space. 432 Hz, 528 Hz. Those very frequencies that science now recognizes as DNA restorers, synchronizers of the brain, and activators of vibrational coherence. The body is not faith, it is how everything is orchestrated. And if you want to awaken, you cannot merely believe, you must tune in. You live in distortion, surrounded by artificial vibrational screens, LED lights, noise, fear, haste. You think it is normal, but your body does not. It hears it and it sounds increasingly false. You feel tired, apathetic, anxious, and you cannot understand why. The doctor might say, hormones, stress, nerves, but he will not say the most important thing. You are disconnected from the light you once carried, the energy with which you were connected for thousands of years. Now it is dry, flattened, disrupting balance, tearing apart your inner chains, between your pineal gland and pituitary gland, between your heart and your skin, between body and spirit and sound. Try to compare the noise of the street to the sound of a singing bowl tuned to 432 Hz. One destroys, the other gathers you through its notes. This is exactly what the ancients understood. A human is an antenna, each cell reacting to vibration. If you exist in a chaotic field, you begin to perceive chaos as truth. That is why today you cannot hear your inner voice. That is why you do not feel your spirit. You simply remain tuned to the wrong frequency, what I once felt intuitively. Today, what Tesla began to confirm is being validated by the most advanced scientists on the planet. He said, if you want to understand, think of the universe in terms of energy, purity, and vibration. Centuries later, these words took on scientific form. Max Planck, the father of quantum physics, declared that matter is not a solid substance, but a form of vibrating energy, worthy of a conscious mind, not merely a poetic image, but a deep recognition that the world is not built on blind mechanics, but on intelligent energy. Energy is not soulless, it can think. Carlo Rovelli, one of the leading researchers in quantum gravity, writes that space, time, and matter are merely layers of interacting vibrations. Everything we see is a network of relationships. That means not only the body, but also thoughts, feelings, even intentions are part of that network. Nassim Haramein goes even deeper. Vacuum is not emptiness, but a saturated resonant field capable of holding information. It is essentially the fabric of consciousness, the very substance Tesla spoke of. Space remembers, it vibrates through vibrations. The heart interacts with that space. Research by the HeartMath Institute has shown that the heart is not merely a pump, but the most powerful electromagnetic organ. creating a field tens of times stronger than the brain. That field changes with emotions and directly affects perception and the immune system. When the heart and brain enter coherence, a person begins to hear themselves, truly feel their inner state. Anthony Holland proved the idea of vibrational impact on matter by destroying tumor cells using frequencies from 100 kHz to 300 kHz without touching them. Healthy tissue listens to the purity. Masaru Emoto demonstrated that even water hears emotions. Under the influence of words of love, water forms perfect crystals. Under aggression, chaos ensues. This is no longer esotericism, it is the science of resonance. Greg Braden, Jody Spence, and Bruce Lipton, modern harbingers, unite quantum physics, neuroscience, and ancient wisdom to show that consciousness is not just reflections of neurons. It is a powerful force that can change DNA, heal the body, and influence the external world. Everything vibrates, everything is connected, and if you know how to tune yourself, you can change everything. Tesla was not merely a genius. He discovered something that laboratories are only now beginning to validate. You and I live at a moment when mysticism and physics are reuniting. Tesla viewed the world not as a collection of objects, but as a single field of energy and information, where everything is connected through vibration and resonance. His internal compass was never set to accumulate power or success in the human sense. He often said, "My brain is just a receiver. There is a core in the universe from which we receive knowledge, power, and inspiration." These were not the words of someone who wanted to use universal laws for personal gain. They were the words of a medium, a guide for whom form and flow were not as important as union with purity. He did not live in a world of results. He lived in a world of purity. According to those who knew him, he could go an entire day without noticing he hadn't eaten, without striving for wealth or glory. All that mattered to him was tuning into what he called the higher planes of thought. He felt that knowledge came to him from the field as insight, like music that simply needed to be heard. He lived in a state of constant quantum download, not for success but for truth. From a scientific perspective, Tesla intuitively arrived at principles that quantum physics only confirmed decades later. Everything in the universe is energy, vibration, and purity. Electricity and magnetic fields are forms of information. Matter is condensed vibration, a compacted wave. A human can influence that field and be influenced by it. Tesla sensed that vibrations were not merely a property of matter or a tool. He called them the connection to the spirit thought. He believed that the electric experience of inspiration and genius was resonance with an invisible level of reality. But why did he not use it for personal gain? Because he did not view vibration as a means to attract wealth. For him, it was the path to understanding the structure of the universe, not a tool for human success. He even refused to patent or sell some of his inventions because he believed it was impossible to monopolize what belongs to all of humanity. He wrote to mankind, "If you wish to find the secrets of the universe, you must forget, for the sake of your own profit, yourself." And here lies Tesla's paradox. He lived a hermit's life in the body of a scientist, knowing that only now are people beginning to comprehend what he discovered. But they did not live by it, not for themselves, not through themselves. That is why his name endures to this day. As the ancients and priests said, everything is sound, everything is a wave. In Egypt, they used heliotherapy and the acoustics of temple halls built on vibrational resonance. In the Vedas, they described Nada Brahma, the world as sound. Shamans knew how changing the rhythm could alter perception, even reality. Today, as science approaches this ancient knowledge, neurophysiology makes it clearer. The brain can be tuned by sound. Epigenetics proves DNA responds to frequencies. Quantum biology shows light and sound can rewrite processes in the body. Everything you feel is not merely a reaction, it is resonance. When you stand next to an anxious person, you feel tension even if they are silent. When you listen to music at 432 Hz, your body relaxes, and awareness begins to remember its original settings. When you live in fear for too long, your field compresses, your body grows ill, your thoughts become heavy. Not because you are bad, but because you are a tool tuned to the wrong wave. And here is where you can return what matters most: purity, not through pills, not through external force, but through reconfiguration from within to the vibration with which you entered this world. What gets in the way is the noise of people whose words are saturated with fear, those feelings of guilt you carry unconsciously, as if they were your own. You lead dialogue, but in reality, You simply submerge yourself in someone else's vibration and don't notice how you begin to sound like nothing. No longer your own purity. You make choices spontaneously under pressure, in anxiety, not from clarity, not from your center, but from a scattered, fractured self that has forgotten who it is. You say yes when you want to say no. You run into action when you needed to freeze. You enter conflict when you could simply feel. And every time you move further away from your innate settings of primary purity. But you can reclaim it, because true tuning is not lost. It is simply drowned out by others' words and by the screen's light, by fears that are not yours. You can switch all that off and hear yourself again. And as soon as you listen, the world ceases to be chaotic. You no longer wander. You remember that you are not a reaction. You are a conductor of purity's vibrations. Then a completely different path begins. The path where you do not lose yourself in the world, but find peace within yourself. And here Tesla returns. Not as a scientist with drawings, but as a person who understood reality as resonance. If you want to change your life, you do not need to fight the world. You need to change yourself. Tesla's wave said, if you want to comprehend the secrets of the universe, think in categories of energy, purity, and vibration. But that is not merely a beautiful phrase. It is the key. When you sound in your own purity, you enter the zone of synchronicity with what you truly need. Reality begins to harmonize with you, not as magic, but as physics. Reality responds to the signal you emit. If you emit fear, even more reasons to fear arise. If you emit clarity, all unnecessary things are filtered away. If you resonate with the source, things begin to happen that cannot be calculated by logic. The ancients knew exactly how to measure that, and modern physics confirms it. Practices of body, spirit, and heart are exactly this, and it becomes the most dangerous knowledge to those who want you to remain in a state of suppressed purity. But you can break free from it, not someday, but right now. Try it, not as meditation, not as ritual, but as a way to remember who you are before noise, before roles, before other people's vibrations. Go out in the morning, ideally before 9 a.m., without glasses, without your phone, without a screen. Stand between you and the sky and let the light touch you. Do not stare directly at the sun. Look in its direction and allow your body to absorb its code through your eyes. Then close your eyes, place your hand on your chest, and ask a question. Not to the mind, but to the body. What do I need to remember? Do not wait for words. Listen. Listen to the silence between each breath. Listen with your thoughts as your inner rhythm settles. Stay that way for 5 or 10 minutes and notice whether it has grown clearer, calmer, closer inside you. That is the tuning, the return to the purity with which you came into this world, not from your head, but from the depths. And perhaps that is now more important than any information, because sometimes it is enough to tune in for everything around you to change, for all that you learned to fade away, until you tune yourself to another purity, not through logic, but through bodily awareness and presence. Sit in silence no matter where. The most important thing is that no artificial noise be near you. Turn on a sound at 432 Hz, or simply imagine that every cell in your body begins to sound like an instrument. Imagine that you are not a person, but a resonator, and your task is not to think or analyze, but to resonate with silence, with the body, with a vibration that already dwells within you. Place your hand on your chest and feel how your heart sounds, not just as an organ, but as a tuner. It is the first to hear when you have gone astray, and the first to bring you back to yourself. Simply breathe, listen not with your ears, but with your body. And when you catch that moment of silence between inhalation and exhalation, ask yourself, in what state of purity am I living now, and how does my purity want to sound? The answer will not come in words, it will manifest in feeling. And if you allow yourself to remain in that sound, your field will begin to rebuild, not instantly, but deeply, and you will feel yourself sounding again as yourself.